President Trump, Congress, and even the National Rifle Association have all said bump stocks, which were the modifications made to the weapons used in Las Vegas, need to be examined in the wake of the attack. Let's bring in former Justice Department Attorney Bob Driscoll for more insight on this subject. We're a long way from an agreement or even a bill on something like this. But suppose that everyone gets on the same page by the shock of the horror of Las Vegas and says, okay, we're going to make bump stocks illegal. Conceivably, that's only for bump stocks that are going to be manufactured after a certain date. Pretty hard to do this retroactively.
Well, it could happen a couple of different ways. I mean, first, the president and the ATF could regulate bump stocks by saying that they qualify as part of a machine gun, and then they would be part of the machine gun prohibition. And they could do that without Congress. The Obama administration approved the sale of two different brands of bump stocks, finding that it was a part that had no mechanical devices, wasn't converting to an automatic weapon.
Even if the ATF and President Trump decided, unilaterally, essentially through regulatory action, that it qualifies as a machine gun, can that be challenged in court? Is that something that a pro-gun rights group can take on, even if it's not the NRA?
One could. One can always bring a regulatory action under the Administrative Procedures Act, saying that the act is contrary to the statute. And they would have, the findings of the Obama administration to kind of back them up, saying that the statute doesn't apply to this, which is why passing a statute would probably be a more secure way of doing it. But even that, could get challenged by someone.
How does the Supreme Court look at this these days? Vis-a-vis gun rights in the Second Amendment versus the government's desire to protect citizens from the kind of attacks we saw?
Right. Well, I think something like this, which is a prohibition or regulation on the type of weapon that is used, the court hasn't really spoken on, other than to suggest that it's okay for the government. I mean, everyone understands that you can't have your own personal cannon. Or other
Although some people would like
to.
Right,
exactly. You can't buy an F-15. And so in the Heller decision, the court made clear that it was talking about personal right to own firearms, but was not getting into which firearms could be owned and whether or not the government could make a public safety argument that certain firearms could be restricted. But that's certainly an area that's ripe for litigation. I mean, on any issue in this country, you have people on both sides, and somebody will say they have a right to own it.
Let's talk about this practically. Slide Fire announced, and they're the ones who make the most popular brand of bump stocks, that they were sold out and they were stopping to take orders because so many people had bought bump stocks in wake of the shooting because they were worried about just this kind of regulatory action. We know in the past that gun owners and the NRA are some of the most powerful lobbyists in Washington. And then there's the practical issue here. You can't go door to door, even if you do make bump stocks illegal, and take them from everybody. It just doesn't work that way. Right. Practically, if there is legislation about these, how's it going to work?
Well, I think it would, be prospective, most likely. I mean, a roundup of existing bump stocks is probably, like you said, impractical. And so you would just have a ban going forward.
That's kind of what they did with machine guns, right?
Right.
Anything after 1988 is illegal.
Or the assault weapons ban was a 10-year period where certain types of weapons were prohibited. So it would be something like that was prospective. And obviously there's limited utility whenever you do that because things will be out there on the secondary market and things can be found. So and that's always the fight.
And also, conceivably, you regulate bump stocks. Bump stocks were an answer to the machine gun ban. Somebody's going to come up with some other kind of answer, mechanically or otherwise, perhaps, that does the same thing. All right, well, as this works its way through Congress or perhaps through the ATF, we'll get back to you. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Good to see you.